All right. Good day to everyone joining us from across India and the world today. Thank you for joining us for the CSAI Major Plaksha Open House. My name is Siddhant, and I'm a part of the program team at Plaksha. And it is a real privilege that we have Mr. Srikanth Velamakanni, who's founder and trustee of the upcoming Plaksha University. And along with him, we also have Dr. Sukrit Gupta, who's one of the founding faculty members for the CSAI program at Plaksha. A little background about them. So Srikanth is the co-founder, group chief executive, and executive vice chairman of Fractal Analytics. Fractal serves more than 100 Fortune 500 companies with its AI, data, and analytics driven business strategies. Srikanth is also the chairman of the board of the Cure.ai, a leading healthcare AI company that's playing a pivotal role in diagnosing and treating diseases like tuberculosis, COVID, and Srikanth is also a member of the NASSCOM Executive Council, where he serves as a subject matter expert on data and AI. Along with Srikanth, we also have, as I mentioned, Professor Sukrit, who obtained his PhD in computer science from the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, where his work focused broadly on studying the functional architecture of the human brain. His research broadly focuses on using computer science to study the functional and structural aspects of the brain, and he has vast research experience. He's worked with researchers from MIT in the US, IASI CNR from Rome, Carnegie Mellon in the US, IIT Ropar, and also in Israel. So thank you both, Srikanth, Sukrit, for joining us today. It's honestly a real privilege to be discussing this entire field of computer science, artificial intelligence, and this specific major that both of you have been heavily involved in crafting at Plaksha. So to the audience, before we begin with today's session, I would like to request you all to please direct any questions that you may have that may come up in the webinar and just address it to the Q&A feature. We will address all the questions towards the end. We've set out a specific amount of time after the initial discussion, where we'll go through a few commonly asked questions and also have a general discussion with Srikanth and Sukrit about what is it about CSAI, what are the cutting edge, what are the different elements that we're incorporating into the degree, and how it affects just, goes beyond the world of Plaksha, and how data science, computer science are, affecting our daily lives today. So Srikanth, if I could please ask you, to share, you've been one of the first founders of Plaksha. So if you could please share with us the story of how Plaksha started and what is Plaksha's vision, and how does Plaksha plan on creating a new kind of engineer?
Thank you, Siddhant. And hi, everyone. And great to see all of you here being part of this session. And obviously, because you're interested in this undergraduate program on CS and AI. Plaksha University, I think, came from the founders. Some of the founders of Ashoka University came together a few years ago and started thinking, okay, how do we reimagine higher education and how do we reimagine engineering education? And the thought was that the world that we grew up in, the founders of Plaksha University grew up in, is different from the world that is currently there, right? And it has changed in a number of ways, but the universities that are there are still the same. They're teaching pretty much the same subjects that they were teaching 20, 30 years ago. Courses are the same, etc. And we said, what if we brought together a brilliant set of faculty members from around the world and created a new way of imagining engineering education? What would it look like? And especially in a world which is full of AI and technology is playing an increasingly important role in our lives. AI is beginning to change the world in many, many ways that we're all seeing. How does engineering education look like? And therefore, we put together, that was the first thing. Second thing was that we said, look, we are here to build great leaders. Right? We are not here to just build great engineers. We want to build great future leaders of this world, future business leaders, future leaders of the nation, future people who can build entrepreneurs, who can build businesses. And we want to build entrepreneurs, we want to build leaders, and we want to build those ethical, strong leaders. It meant that we have to build holistic human beings rather than just good engineers.
Absolutely.
And then how we focus on bringing in multiple elements. It's a cross-disciplinary approach. If we were to reimagine education, engineering education, what would it look like? And brought in a bunch of, if you go to the next slide, you can see that we got a bunch of partnerships from, this is the founding team. Next slide, please. We got partnerships with a number of different people who've come together to say, this is how engineering education should look like. And that's really the output of that. And I wish I was there to do an undergrad. I'm too old for that. But this is really what would an undergrad look like if I wanted to apply for engineering today. That's what really we thought of. Yeah.
Great.
Back to you, Srikanth.
Thanks a lot, Srikanth. And Srikanth, you mentioned a bit about the founders. You said they've also been a part of Plaksha, building Ashoka University. So could you tell us a little bit about the people, behind Plaksha's vision and mission and what brings them all together? You drew on that a little bit, but if you could just, tell us a little bit about the founding group.
Yeah, and that's, I think, if anything, this is the most unique thing about Plaksha University is just the founding team. I mean, the entire founding team has come together as in a philanthropic, it's a philanthropic mission. It is to create, and the reason I got excited about Plaksha was because when the initial team came to me and said, we can create something that can last the next 200 years, right? Education institutions, if imagine, will last 200 years and can change the world, right? Really, in the very long term, education is one of the most important pillars to change the world. And we felt like that was a mission. It was to make a mark in this world rather than build an education institution for profit. So all these founders that you see, 60 plus founders around the world, like basically around the map of the world, came together and said, what does it look like to build this new age engineering institution? And really, these are successful entrepreneurs, successful executives, successful investors. These are just a whole lot of people who have really been there, done that, and then decide that we should all come together and build this institution. And they're all spending countless hours trying to build this institution just for the sheer love of it. And that's what I think makes me so passionate about this, is because just the energy of the founding team is just incredible. It's infectious.
Absolutely, Srikanth. And I think the same goes for our academic advisory board as well, who are actively, participating, curating the curriculum, who are also, helping with faculty recruitment and faculty training. You yourself have been a part of some of these curriculum workshops.
Yes, Siddhant. Just to be clear, I was most least qualified person to be in this kind of discussion. What I saw was just the sheer sort of talent in the room. These are eminent faculty members from around the world, the leading institutions around the world, and they've all been saying, I wish I could do this in Berkeley. I wish I could do this in Purdue, right? Because these are very successful institutions. So, but I have an opportunity to do this here at Plaksha. And so they have really devoted a lot of time in rethinking, reimagining engineering education. And one of the questions in the Q&A box I saw was that, what is the CS and AI program, and why is it different from a CS program or an AI program? That is really the point. The computer science without AI is meaningless, and AI you cannot learn without understanding computer science. So that's really what we try to build, is a comprehensive undergrad program which recognizes that computer science is inextricably linked to AI, and so is AI linked to computer science. And therefore, what is that curriculum that creates the future computer science and AI engineers in the world? And that's really what we've created. We've got 4 programs here. And the first one is on the top left. That's what we are discussing today. But if you look at, we've basically said, okay, today, what is the point in saying something is electrical engineering? Like really what we have to think of is, it is probably building robotics and cyber physical systems, right? How do you, so yes, there is a electrical and electronics engineering bent to it, but there's also mechanical engineering bent to it. It's about actually creating and an AI layer to it. How do you bring them together? Because that's really the future jobs are going to be in those areas. So let's build those kinds of people who can be readily used by the workforce, by the sort of new age businesses, and who will be really relevant for the next 10 to 50 years. Right? That's really what we built in that. Then we have a biological systems engineering course, and which is essentially the idea is that biology and mathematics, especially with the advances in genetics and and sort of DNA sequencing and even DNA editing and everything. It's really a different world. Right? How does engineering and biology come together? This is the cross-disciplinary thinking that we're bringing into every field. And the last one here is really exciting one. This is about how do you combine data science and AI and machine learning techniques, but combine it with business applications. How do you bring in understanding of a solid understanding of economics, especially behavioral economics? How do humans actually make decisions? And if you put that together, what does an engineering course look like which combines these? I'm very excited about all of these courses, because these are, you don't find them in typical engineering schools, because it's really meant for this era, right? It's not your 1960s engineering courses that most of the other institutions tend to teach.
Great. Thanks a lot, Srikanth. I'd like to also bring in to the conversation Professor Sukrit. Sukrit, you've been to some of the leading institutions, worked with some amazing professionals from all across the world. For Plaksha's majors, there's we can see that there's an element of this interdisciplinarity across the majors. So, what according to you does this interdisciplinary engineering education mean? And why is it so important for students to be exposed to it right at the undergraduate level?
Actually, I mean, I look at it a little differently. When you talk about education, I think education is about problem solving. And when you look at problems, I mean, a problem will not come to you and tell you that, okay, I mean, you are a computer science engineer, so you can design only a computer science solution. Problems have multidisciplinary, I mean, perspectives, and they need people who have multidisciplinary, let's say, exposure. Okay, so I mean, if you study only one discipline, you cannot, I mean, you have a very limited exposure to problem solving. So what one approach to this is that I mean, you are exposed to varying domains. You are given an interdisciplinary education where you're taught about not just let's say, I mean, computer science, but about AI, but about a little bit about biology, little bit about robotics, so that at least you know what the solution to a particular problem entails. Okay, now, I mean, let's talk about this. I mean, for example, I mean, let's talk about this startup that Srikanth works, I mean, is involved in. It's called Cure AI. So they basically, let's say, I mean, to simplify it, they train computers to read X-ray and X-ray, chest X-rays, and head CT scans and MRI scans. So basically, you give the machine an X-ray scan, and it will tell you that, okay, this patient has, I mean, TB with this particular accuracy. Now, I mean, look at the kind of disciplines involved here. First, you have software engineering, because someone will design this solution, so that involves software engineering. So then you will have someone who is an expert at AI, so computer science, AI, I mean, someone who needs to design the AI behind the system. Then you will have medical experts, basically clinicians, who will label the data, who will interpret what the AI is trying to figure out. So do you see? And of course, you have multiple people in the regulatory department who are getting things sorted in that direction. But do you see the kind of people that have come together, I mean, from so many different disciplines to design this solution to this problem? So this is, I think, interdisciplinary power of interdisciplinary education. And I think Srikanth raised a very interesting point, and that's what attracted me to Plaksha as well. We do not just want to train good engineers. I mean, IITs train good engineers. There's no doubt about that. But we want to have people who who have an idea about what are the problems in the society today, because and what are the societal constructs, not just in India but around the world. Because if you're designing solutions to the problems, you need to know these things so that you can design efficient solutions. So I mean, we try to do this with not just having engineering courses in the curriculum, but humanities courses in the curriculum as well, which will introduce them to the history of India, which will talk about the social structure in India, and all of these I mean, all of these different aspects that we feel that students need to be exposed to. So this is, I think, what we mean by interdisciplinary engineering education. And it's not just interdisciplinary engineering, but I think, you bring in arts, humanities, social sciences to
Absolutely.
the curriculum as well. Yeah.
So I think a large audience of our students here are particularly interested in the CSAI program at Plaksha. And the way that the curriculum has been conceptualized and designed is very unique. So if you could just walk us through what a student's journey will look like at Plaksha across their 4 years, and what stands out for you in terms of the pedagogical elements that students will be introduced to.
So what I think is, it'll be normal 4 year, and the degree will constitute a 4 year time domain. But what we have, thought about is that I think there are three very different things that we are planning to do here. One of them is the ILGC, the Innovation Labs and Grand Challenges curriculum. So what in traditional engineering curriculums, what we have is we have projects after projects in each semester, and those projects have no correlation with the project done in the prior semesters. What we want is, we want to have this grand challenges approach, where we basically introduce students to what are the problems that the world is facing. There are some engineering, like 14 engineering grand challenges, and one of them is healthcare. Healthcare is one of them, and I work in that domain. So what are the problems that the world is facing, and we want students to pick up a challenge that they want to work on in the first year itself. So in the first semester, we talk to them about what are the challenges. We tell them, okay, what are the existing solutions, and then they decide that, okay, this is something that I want to work on. They do a study, and then they start working towards solving the challenge with the interdisciplinary team. Okay. uh, Now by the end of 4 years, not only will they have produced a solution, a tangible solution to that problem, but they will have an in-depth knowledge to that problem,
Correct.
to that
Yeah.
problem, and the whole ecosystem around that problem. Okay,
Right.
so
Right.
this is, I think, one major differentiator. The second, I think, thing that differentiates us is that the focus on, of course, interdisciplinary education. So we will not be teaching students all the courses in computer science. That's not our goal. What we will teach them in terms of computer science is a set of core courses that we believe are absolutely important for them to understand AI. Okay, and we introduce this fractal curriculum, where we take, like, let's say, we take only important parts of courses being taught elsewhere, and we put them in our curriculum. So if, let's say, introduction to neuroscience is being taught to students of, let's say, biological system engineering, we will take 3 weeks or first 4 weeks of that course, where they talk about neurons and electrophysiology and all of that, and we will put that in, let's say, the deep learning course for the students at Plaksha. So this is another thing. And the third thing is, of course, we don't want to uh, put students in a particular major right from the beginning. We want them to choose that. So I think, yeah, that these are things that differentiate us in terms of curriculum. Yeah.
So, Professor Sukrit, I just want to, get your thoughts on the way that, students also split their time. So the first 1.5 years, as I understand it, is basically for students to come in and just, explore the different majors, explore the different disciplines. And then after getting a taste of, the different majors, then go on to decide what they want to major in. So is this usually, something that's standard across engineering institutions, or does this come off as an aspect that allows students to build up that interdisciplinary approach, because they're dabbling and getting expertise in across these various disciplines?
So it's of course, that's not how you choose engineering majors. You have a particular rank in your entrance exam. You apply for engineering majors, and whatever major you get is based according to your rank. That's how things work so far. uh, and to put it very bluntly, a lot of people end up in majors that they don't like. They so I was lucky. I chose computer science, and I liked computer science. It seemed like I like computer science. But I know a lot of my friends who did not enjoy computer science, and They were stuck for computer science, with computer science. And what this leads to is you have to spend 4 years in the UG degree, and you end up spending doing something for 4 years that you don't like, and that's a waste. You don't use it for the next coming years of your life, because you don't take up a job in that domain. Okay, so that's that is something that we thought about at Plaksha, and we wanted people to come in with absolutely no major stamped on them. They come in, so what we will do during the first 3 semesters is we will introduce them to different courses in all these disciplines. So there'll be a course on biology, there'll be a course on maths and statistics. That is a lot of fun, and it'll be needed with both CS and with AI as well. Then there'll be courses in problem solving with programming languages. There'll be courses with basic electronics. Okay, and there'll be I think I covered almost all the majors that we had. So what you will have is you will have students exposed to different majors on a higher level, and then they will be able to make an informed choice. So we do not want students to think that CSAI is better than the rest of the majors, because that is not the case. Okay, these courses, these majors, these are targeted towards solving different problems, and each of them is as relevant as the other. So that is what we thought about while bringing students and letting them pick up their majors after 3 semesters, that let them choose themselves what they're interested in. So yeah.
Srikanth, if I may just come back to you, you've also been, a part of the process in framing some of the curriculum. So from an industry standpoint, for, the world's future leaders, world's future entrepreneurs, what sets the, computer science and just the general curriculum at Plaksha apart? And, where do you see these kind of students? What kind of careers? Maybe I'll come back to that question. But in terms of the curriculum at Plaksha, how does it stand out for you from an industry perspective?
Right. So first thing I would say is, I think like Professor Sukrit also mentioned, it is all about critical thinking and problem solving. Right. I think what we want to teach here at Plaksha is to create is to sort of set in motion this quest to solve big problems in the world, right? And be the person who can figure it out and solve it, right? So it is about setting you in that line of inquiry and going and solving the world's problems, rather than trying to make an expert at something where half-life of knowledge is 3 years. In this world today, half-life of knowledge is 3-4 years, which means that most of the things that you study will automatically be sort of obsolete by the time you get out of the college. So what we want to instead do is to give you those lines of inquiry so that you can build your world after that, right? So that's the kind of critical thinkers that we want to develop. And especially what we are trying to do is the underlying fundamentals of AI and CS is really solid understanding of mathematics, solid understanding of probability, and so on. Frankly, across all the disciplines that we see here, all the 4 disciplines, that is really what you should be interested in the Plaksha program if you're really solid on math, because that's really the underlying all AI, and AI is a sort of common factor across all the 4 disciplines. So what I see is a focus on fundamentals, and setting you up in a different lines of inquiry. And what we are also doing is some of the even graduate level programs like deep learning or image recognition, these kinds of things we're trying to advance a little bit, because frankly, those are the kinds of problems that you want to solve right after you graduate from college. We don't want to, stick to something which is very traditional. We want to bring you the most latest and most modern things right now, so that you can get introduced and you can go there. Other point I would say is that it's in the world of AI, it's all about human plus machine, right? For the foreseeable future, it's not just going to be program algorithms doing everything. We are not in that world of singularity. It's far from here. But before that is the world of human plus machine, right? So everything is about how do you understand human beings, and then how do you solve problems? Because that's the best AI engineers are the ones who also understand human behavior. And that's really what we are also trying to create. In that sense, right? This is uniquely positioned. You're solving problems. You have grand challenges. You're through and through. You're solving problems. You're learning some stuff. You're applying them. So what we want to get out of this is people who have come out, who are ready for the industry, who can go and solve problems immediately in any organization. And companies such as Fractal would love to have people like those, right? That's the mindset with which we have developed, that these are people who should be ready for the industry as well as go for further education. If they want to do further education, they can do further education. They want to join the industry. If they want to do their own startups, we want to build those kinds of leaders. And really the whole program, the academic rigor around the program has been built with that in mind.
So Srikanth, just building on this, you touched upon a little bit, but on your thoughts on the future of work, so the kind of education that Plaksha offers, in specific, what kind of careers can a Plaksha graduate look forward to, especially for the CSAI major? We talk about, the world going digital and artificial intelligence, influencing everything around us. So what are some of the, careers, or what are some of the roles that students can look forward to after not just doing a computer science degree, but also specializing in artificial intelligence?
I think firstly, the future of work will be very different from what it is today, right? I mean, we've already seen the pandemic itself has changed the nature of our work. Absolutely. And the type, how we work. But what we do, why we do, things will change, right? If you see, AI is beginning to push outward and outward and trying to take some of the jobs that human beings would do, like data processing or some of those predictable activities, will all be done by machines. And these AI engineers and CS and AI engineers are going to write that kind of code which automates some of that stuff. So that's one. Secondly, if you look at the leaders of tomorrow, they have to be doing things that AI programs can't do, which is essentially how can you do critical thinking and problem solving? How can you just the mindset around there is no one right answer to any question. There are multiple right answers. This idea of bringing uniquely human skills to any problem, like for example, empathy and compassion and originality and creativity. How do you build those skills in the students? That's what we are trying to create. And therefore, once these people this is the future of work. The future of work is people with uniquely human skills and people who are very creative, flexible, who can learn to learn. Right? That's also what we're doing. And when we're sending you off on units of inquiry, we are saying that, okay, you can learn new things and solve problems because you're entrepreneurial, you have a problem solving mindset, and you can take on a problem, figure out everything else that is required and solve it. And that's what we're trying to get you. So these kinds of people will be, I think, very, very attractive in organizations, because every organization is looking for self-starting, successful people who can just, handle the ad hoc and the unstructured nature of work or unspecified problem, and be able to specify the problem and solve it. And so those are the kinds of things in organizations. I mean, you've seen here, you can be data scientists, you can be in analytics consulting roles, you could be engineers who are working on what we call as AI engineers, people who understand AI and who can write lots of code to scale at a company like a Google or something like that. Even management consulting is becoming more and more of analytically oriented and more of algorithmically oriented. So each of these areas in organizations are open for people who graduate from this program. Right. But if you want to solve a real problem and become an entrepreneur, yes, that's also something that there's a whole entrepreneurial orientation within the Plaksha. Plaksha is set up by a bunch of entrepreneurs, right? Successful entrepreneurs who have come together. So the entrepreneurship is the heart of what Plaksha is trying to create as well. But if you want to go further studies, that's also open, because we've set you up in such a way that you can go ahead and inquire in the directions that you are interested in, or go and play organizational roles or build your own company. And we have already seen, for example, Siddhant, if you can go to the next slide, we have a program called the TLF. It's a Tech Leaders Fellowship program, which is think of it like an M.Tech program. And one batch has already graduated from Plaksha. The second batch is graduating this year. And what we've seen is that they've got placed in some of the best companies in India. Very, very solid companies have come in and hired from here. We have had a full placement here despite the pandemic. And what we have seen is that these students have got very positive feedback inside the organizations that they've joined. So many of these kinds of companies that you see on this page are likely to be very attracted to the undergraduate students from Plaksha as well.
And Srikanth, just to go back to your example on Plaksha also preparing students for careers in entrepreneurship, I think that you've mentored some of these students as well, and some of Plaksha students, despite just graduating from this TLF program, are starting to make big strides in the entrepreneurship world as well.
Absolutely, that's again very heartening to see that just that 1 year program at Plaksha TLF has sort of, created many entrepreneurs who are not only, entrepreneurs, but they're actually trying to disrupt the world. Right? They're coming up with completely breakthrough new ideas. Like Ramya here that you see here, she's built a brilliant product already in the healthcare AI space. So mental health AI space. So it's very interesting to see the entrepreneurial zeal of the students. And if Plaksha can basically provide the right environment for the entrepreneurs to come in, just you can pick a grand challenge and that could become a business, right? Or which will run through the entire 4 years. But the idea is for us to encourage entrepreneurs and great leaders. And certainly, I think that I feel is another really plus point about Plaksha vis-a-vis, let's say, other engineering education institutes, because it's more about teaching. It's like, okay, we have all this vast knowledge, and how can we impart to you within four years? That's not what the Plaksha mindset is. The Plaksha mindset is how can we set you up on your journey, right? It's a student first. And how do you build great leaders instead of here's my course, here's all the content, I have 50 courses and somehow I have to ram it into your head in the next 4 years. That's not really the approach here. And that's why you'll see a different sort of leaders emerge from Plaksha.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. I think that brings us to the end of the first, first leg of our open house today, where students had shared their, questions and some of the frequently asked questions that we have. I'd like now to open the Q&A to all students, parents who are joining us. So we've already started receiving some. So I think this can be for both Srikanth and Sukrit. We have an attendee who asks us whether CS jobs are actually, going out of fashion or actually dying because of artificial intelligence and the advents in the world of AI. So what are your thoughts on that?
I can go first.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't think it is true. CS and AI jobs are right now the hottest. It is the hottest profession of the 21st century by far, right? We can see that. I'm having founded an AI firm and run for the last 20 years. It's the most difficult time right now to retain talent because there's so much excitement in the marketplace, right? So much happening here. So that is not true. But I want to respond to your real question here. If you take a 20, 30-year view, right, it is possible that we don't need as many AI engineers as we think today, right? Because AI is automating a bunch of things, therefore we can work ourselves out of a job. But the point is that what we are creating here is not just programmers or good CS programmers. What we are creating is great leaders, right? So we will have to, every career will go through multiple rounds. Every person will have to go at least 4 or 5 careers in their life in the next 50 years, right? So therefore, we have to create the leaders who can navigate that. And today, I think for the next 10 to 15 years, I think AI and CS are going to be extraordinarily hot. That's at least my understanding. Sukrit.
Yeah. So I think the question was about whether AI will eat up jobs in the vanilla CS engineering domain. So I don't. I mean, so you will always need people who will do implementation of let's say websites and all of those. I mean, web apps, mobile applications, all of those. So of course, I mean I think what will happen is people who are empowered with AI ML knowledge, they will get let's say better positions and much much better roles, in the sense that they will be highly sought after in the industry for the next 10-15 years, till the time there's I think there are too many of them out there. So that is what I think about this. But I don't see normal software engineering kind of profiles go out of fashion in the next 5, 7, 10 years or so. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a very interesting question. It's from Akshay, who asks, if we create a solution for a problem, how do we go beyond that? After just thinking about it and creating a solution, what are the next steps? So Srikanth, if you could please answer this for Akshay.
Yeah, sure. I think, again, it also depends on what do you mean by solution. Solution could be just a blueprint in your head. It could be a PowerPoint presentation, or it could be a prototype, or it could be a real product that can solve a successful problem. And it could also start with, it may be a part of a solution, and you may go end to end with that solution, right? As an example, and again, to take what Professor Sukrit already mentioned, Secure.ai. Cure.ai started in 2015, end of 2015, early 2016. And what we initially did there was took images, a bunch of images. Prashant and his team, they basically took a bunch of images and could say that, okay, these images, I can find out, so let's take a head CT scan. We could find out a bleed or a fracture or a midline shift. These kinds of things we can find out. And similarly, in the X-ray space, they could figure out that, okay, here's an X-ray and here are the 15 different abnormalities in that X-ray. It could be pneumothorax, or it could be a whole, it could be sort of a lung nodule, and so on. This is just at this point of time, you can say it's a solution, but it is actually not a solution yet, because it is just a proof of a concept that I can take an image and I can find out. Now, if to really make a difference in the world, it has to be used by somebody. Doctors have to use it. And then you realize that, oh, but doctors don't really want to use this. They feel like, I already know what I want to do. So you are already running into a problem saying, how do I apply this in the real world, right? And then you have to see, so basically then it has to be developed at scale. So we realize that there are countries in Africa where they don't have internet. So while it work in a situation, there's no internet. In Philippines, we found that there are mobile vans in which they want to screen these people for TB. So first we realized that TB is an important problem. So you had to build it for TB. And then you have to see that, okay, how do we do it for screening? What does that mean? So the idea was that, can you catch them at the time of screening and therefore and therefore stop them from getting. So basically what happens is that you have to, it's a real world. You have to drive adoption, you have to drive scale. And it means that you have to have a strong design orientation to the solution, which means that you understand actually how it will work in the world, what exact problem you're solving, and work backwards from there. So even when if you build that full solution and commercialized it, of course, it will be very successful. But most people fail because they've only thought of a very technical problem and a technical solution rather than a real world problem and solve it end to end.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much, Srikanth. Professor Sukrit, a question for there's Bhavnur who asks that they're interested in AI. They want to play with AI models, but they're not quite sure where to start from. So for a school student, what would be a good first step for them to begin, their journey with computer science or AI?
It depends on what grade are you in. If you already know calculus, then I think it shouldn't be as hard. You have multiple courses these days online. For example, there is a course on Introduction to Machine Learning. So I think it is, so instead of just going around and playing around with things, it is very important that you understand what exactly you're trying to do. So I have seen people who say that they are AI scientists, and if you ask them basic questions, they fall flat. So you take up courses. So there is a course by Andrew Ang on Introduction to Machine Learning. There are multiple channels which dump it down to the level where school students can understand. So, but I feel like a basic introduction to calculus is necessary, and of course matrix multiplications. So if you're in grade 12 in India, you're good to go. If you're in grade 11 where you've learned differentiation, and you can also follow some of integration, you're good to go. But below that, then you have to I think look for specialized courses where you have to develop the intuition on what integration differentiation mean, and then you can maybe have a look at courses introducing ML AI to you.
I just add to that what Professor Sukrit said. So there are two things here. One is the fundamentals of AI, right? Which is like the math probability, linear algebra, integration, differentiation, calculus. Those kinds of things are to really understand AI as to how it really works, what the algorithms are, how do they optimize, why is it working, and why should something else not work. If you want to understand that track, I think Professor Sukrit said is absolutely the right thing. You get the foundations right, get the intro to ML, etc. kind of courses. That's one. The second thing is that you may just want to play around, right? You want to feel like, even you're already playing around when you talk to Alexa or Siri or something like that. You're already doing a little bit of that. But if you want to really sort of build your own little AI models and see how it works without really understanding the depth of it, you can start looking at something like TensorFlow. Just go to tensorflow.org and download the software, and there are some good, nice tutorials, or PyTorch for that matter, or a little bit, some of these kinds of things. Just download those things and try to play around. You will not understand the full details of how it is, but there are some really good tutorials out there on TensorFlow, but also outside. Just take the very basic ones, do some little bit hello world type of programs that you can do on the AI side. And you will see that, with 10, 12 lines of code, you can write, you can automate some things. You can automate, to sort of take a document and read the text of the document, right? You can automate that in less than 10 lines of code, right? Because there's all those APIs are already available. You can see that, oh, wow, this does it. And you start writing some logic on top of that. So it's not very difficult to get started and get some real traction and even see some really good outputs from that. So go in that direction from an application standpoint, but do not ignore the fundamentals, because really that's what will distinguish you and make you a really good AI engineer is to understand this math and the computer science aspects of AI.
Great. Thanks a lot, Srikanth. Srikanth, the next question for you. We have an attendee asking, what are some of the mentorship opportunities for STEM students who join as undergraduates at Plaksha?
This is a very, very, very good question, and I can answer for what TLF. In TLF, we have a batch of about 60 odd students, and every student has a mentor. One of the founders of Plaksha is actually mentoring him or her. And really, I mean, I think, that itself is a really valuable thing, because I feel that everybody in the world needs a mentor. And I mean, as mentors have an outsized influence in people's outcomes and people's happiness and success in life. So I feel that that is something that we are very seriously implementing at Plaksha in TLF. And that's a similar mindset will be there in the undergraduate program as well, that you want an emotionally healthy place, right? Engineering institutions can be very stressful and so on. You want an emotionally healthy place, and you want some mentor so that you feel like, okay, what I'm going through right now, I can get by it and I can get better. And this is where I should point me in that direction, right? What does mentor do? A mentor just points him in the right direction and say, this is the direction which might be good for you. You have to do the exploration, you have to do the hard work, but they can point you in a few good directions. And we do feel that Plaksha will have that. It already has in TLF program, and it should also have it in the undergraduate program.
To add to, I think what Srikanth said, I think one of the strengths of Plaksha is the kind of people that we will have. I mean, so we not only have entrepreneurs, we have I mean, great people in the academia as well. And I mean, we will of course have faculty members who will have contacts in the industry and in the academia. So I mean, we will have basically what I'm trying to say is that you can find mentors or guidance to go into either industry or academia, or I mean, or multiple domains out there, because we will have very accomplished people in each of these domains. So I think I mean, you're in for a treat if you're looking for mentorship at Plaksha. Yeah.
There's this very interesting question, which is at the very fundamental roots of the subject that we're talking about, and sometimes leaves. I can say that I've been stumped by this question. Professor Sukrit, maybe we could ask you first, and then also ask Srikanth. What exactly differentiates artificial intelligence, data science, and machine learning?
So machine learning basically involves, I think, so machine learning is supervised, unsupervised. It's an umbrella term that people use for AI as well. I mean, AI is sort of like a sub branch of ML. And AI, so AI has usually contains supervised and semi. Now, I mean, it has also come to include semi-supervised versions. And what was the third one? So
data science. Data science.
Data science is an application of AI, and mostly ML, supervised, unsupervised learning. And so I think a lot of I think we missed this during our what kind of jobs will people be doing. I think a lot of people who will graduate from this program will also be data scientists. So they will basically look at data and they will churn data and bring out insights from that data from the Plaksha program. So yeah, That's
maybe I'll add to that what Professor Sukrit said, and maybe it will sound a little different, right? Because there are different interpretations and all of these things, right? So in my world, AI is an umbrella term, right? AI is that's how I think of it, Professor Sukrit. But anyway, AI is an umbrella term, which is essentially anything that any algorithm can be an AI, right? Even if you write a kitchen recipe, right, cooking recipe, how to make tomato soup, technically you can call that AI because it's like a sequence of steps to be executed, and I would loosely call it the AI. And Professor Sukrit, I know you probably don't agree with me, but okay. And in that world, there are multiple things like knowledge representation is part of an AI, right? Or there is a good old-fashioned AI, which was about writing a bunch of rules. Back when I was graduating from electrical engineering, AI meant basically learning rules. It was like a set of expert rules, and that's the kind of AI that defeated Kasparov. Deep Blue defeating Kasparov was that what was called as GoFi or good old-fashioned AI. Now the new AI is almost all of it is machine learning, right? So therefore the AI ML are almost the same today. Then machine learning is a branch of AI which is so big relative to the overall AI that practically it is overtaken AI itself. So AI ML are now interchangeably being used. Within machine learning, you have deep learning, which is a specific subject where there's a maximum amount of activity, right? Which is about what was traditionally called neural networks. This part of AI was actually discarded. It was not even considered AI back in the 90s. Anybody who did, I mean, I was learning neural networks, and my computer science counterparts would say, "What is this neural networks nonsense? It's not AI. AI is something else." It's not so anymore. It's AI very much is now all machine learning is all over AI. And data science essentially is again it is basically a newly coined word. I mean, relatively 10-year-old coined word, and it is nothing but application of machine learning or other kinds of statistical learning and other kinds of learning, basically on data to solve business problems. So that's really the difference. Even for example, you do statistical learning techniques. There are also kinds of machine learning only, but there are default case of machine learning. That's really the way I look at the space. AI umbrella term, machine learning one branch, which is the biggest branch, and within that you have deep learning, statistical learning, other kinds of learning, and data science is like another umbrella word which says basically use data to solve problems.
Great. I'm also receiving a lot of questions about some of the admissions details. So perhaps I could take the students and parents today just quickly answer some of the popular questions that they've been asking about things like batch intake strength. So we're looking at around 150 to 200 students for our first undergraduate batch at Plaksha. This is across disciplines, and like Professor Sukrit mentioned, you only have to declare your major once you've taken up different courses, and only towards the end of the third semester is when you have to declare your major. A lot of questions on placements. So yes, Plaksha will have its own placement cell. Srikanth also took us through what placements have been like at Plaksha's master level program, the Tech Leaders Fellowship, where students within their first year and despite COVID have gone on to engage in some very exciting opportunities and even start their own startups. So that's answering whether Plaksha plans on having a placement cell. There's a very good question about for someone graduating from Plaksha, will they be able to go ahead and get a master's in the US after that? Will the degree be recognized?
Of course, you will be. I mean, you will go to one of the top programs. You will not only will you get to go abroad. I mean, after your bachelor's, you might be going abroad. I mean, during your bachelor's for a summer training or something. I mean, so don't worry about that. I mean, yeah, and degree will be recognized, and you will get plenty of offers and everything. Yeah.
Yes, so the degree will be recognized by the UGC, as are all other degrees from the top known universities in India. For admissions, the current round of admissions, the second round of admissions is going on at Plaksha for across all programs. Please visit our website, www.plaksha.org, for more details about what kind of programs we have, what are the dates, and you also find the application form, which is again tries to capture a holistic understanding of students' interests, passions, and what inspires them about technology. Um, Now we have a certain more questions about AI. Um, One of them, and Professor Sukrit, perhaps you could answer this. What are some of the languages that students should start off with when they want to start coding, and how can they then develop their interests?
Python comes to mind. I mean, Python is being used widely these days. But of course, I mean, I know that there are other things that are coming up. So Julia is one, for example. So if you want to do, I mean, so I don't know Julia, and just a disclaimer. But I know that people have started using Julia for really improving the speed, computational speed. But I mean, when I come to Plaksha, or when I teach a basic course, say Introduction to Programming, I think it will be in Python, most surely, because Python has a lot of support, and you will you Google an error and you'll get support. You will have a lot of libraries. So more like I think Srikanth was talking about TensorFlow and PyTorch. So they have extensive support for Python. So I think Python is the way to go. But remember that Python is just one way to approach problems. You have if you want to go into app development, all of those, there is JavaScript, and you should probably learn Java first. But I coming to just into AI and all, I think Python is a good way to start.
There's this very interesting question that perhaps Srikanth I'll address to you. The question is, Plaksha is a new university, and students, while being exposed to these fantastic cutting edge concepts, will there be something amiss about student culture, because the first batch wouldn't have their seniors around, so a part of that cultural experience. So I'd pose it a little differently. What are some of the unique opportunities that the students who join the first undergraduate batch in Plaksha would have?
The first thing is that it's the founding batch. I think I think forever in the next 50 to 100 years, I think you can claim that as one of the things that you were the founding batch. I know still some of my seniors who say I'm the founding batch of IIM Ahmedabad, or and so on, and they feel very proud of being that. So I think you can make history by being the founding batch. Second is that the TLF program people will be there. They who are some of this, think of them as seniors because they're grad school students, but they will be there and they can guide a little bit. And the third one, most important, is that you will see a full, there's 60 founders of Plaksha. They're all going to be there. I mean, they're the most investment that is going to be there is in the first few years, because we really want every single student is like, they will be like a child for me, right? I mean, my daughter is too young right now to go to college, but I would feel that way, right? It's that important to have students successfully graduate and become great in their lives, right? So the full attention and dedication of the entire founding team and the brilliant faculty, right? I think there's something to say for that. It's like you will have way too much attention and way too much love and caring, which I think will actually go a long way in creating great students overall. So I think that's the opportunity side of it. I do agree that they're not going to be seniors, but let's take that as a positive, because who wants seniors, right? I never engaged with seniors throughout my 4 years in college. I really hated all of them. But yeah, so that's it for me.
Yeah, I would also like to add. I mean, while we were looking at the curriculum, we discussed this, and we discussed about various clubs and like student clubs and cultural events that could start, and we also discussed about how we can include sports into the curriculum. So we are mindful of it, and we will put our minds to it, and I'm sure the team, the admissions team, and the administrative team has something in mind to get these clubs and all started. But yeah, I mean, there is this thing that what you will do is you will basically set up a benchmark for the coming batches. So it basically puts up more responsibility on you, but there's a lot of learning also involved, because you'll start from scratch, as are the founding faculty. So that's the positive side, and the basically the
And
benefits.
if I may also add, I was part of one of the founding from one of the first few years of the Ashoka undergraduate program. So I completely understand, the kind of hesitation some students and parents have while joining a new university. But I think that what influenced me uh, and what really got my attention was the fact that of course, there are some outstanding individuals who you really got to interact with, like Srikanth mentioned. There'll be founders in and on campus. Simple things like just having lunch with them and trying to pick up on some trends from them. When perhaps you're working on a project, you can seek their mentorship. You have unrestricted access to faculty. The faculty will be staying in and around campus. The first few years, you'll be one of the few people who will have access to these brilliant minds, not just teaching you, but engaging them in your research. And then you also have uninterrupted access to all the facilities on campus, which again in very, very large universities also get busy. So that is an added bonus. And you will of course not feel that there aren't seniors around. There'll be a lot of TAs. There'll be fellows from the Tech Leaders Fellowships who can also mentor you. So all of those aspects make being part of one of the few initial batches all the more exciting. Okay, I think we'll take maybe another 2 or 3 more questions, and then wrap up this discussion. And I'm just trying to see if we have any unanswered questions. There are a lot of questions. I think someone was asking about which website is it that students can learn to build small AI models. I believe it's TensorFlow. You should please go out and check the TensorFlow website. Sports, of course, will be there's a whole dedicated sports block ranging from swimming, gyms, football field. So all of that will be taken care of for students, and it will go beyond academics. There'll be a lot of clubs. Plaksha has a very interesting, unique maker space where students can go in, build things from scratch, design, prototype, use 3D printers, use carpentry tools, soldering machines to create from the very basic machines to some advanced I mean just access to 3D printers through a cutting edge technology, being able to go in and build anytime. That is very exciting as well.
We will also have clubs for music, for dramatics, art and photography. I mean, all of these. I mean, all of the clubs that you see at other, engineering colleges, we will have those, and we will make sure that they are well equipped.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So there is this question about is it the right time to latch onto the AI bandwagon? Is AI right now a little new? So will graduates be able to find placements easily, or are we already in the time of AI?
I think we're already in the time of AI, and and I think it's only going to go better in terms of getting jobs in this domain. I mean, 4 years from now, I think you'll get more and more jobs, and yeah, I think Srikanth should add to it.
Yeah, look, I started an AI firm 20 years ago, so that would have been early to be an AI, but now is not, definitely not. It is absolutely the hottest thing on the planet right now. It's absolutely hot, and it is I think being a data scientist was considered the sexiest profession of the 21st century. That was 5-6 years ago, and it's absolutely the nerdy, geeky data scientist or AI engineer is in right now. So, and the jobs are incredible. I mean, look, the people in Google and companies like those, right? They are paying tons and tons of money to get people like these. It's incredible. So it is the best time in the world. I mean, the best time in the world to be an AI engineer was maybe even 3-4 years ago, but the second best time is now. This is the best time from your vantage point, this is the best time to become that.
Additionally, if you don't look at it just from the job perspective or being in the industry perspective, I think AI gives you a lot of flexibility to solve problems. So I mean, you can design solutions with a few people. Not you don't need a fleet like Ola and Uber, but just a few people, a dedicated people team. I mean, they can design a solution to a problem, and get it through. So I think, I mean, it's amazing to know this. I mean, be in this domain.
So we did have, and perhaps this can be one of our last questions for the day. What is the admission process like at Plaksha? So at Plaksha, what we're looking at is, trying to, the application form basically serves the purpose of trying to understand students better. And while we do ask for some grades, we ask for, your school scores from class 9 to class 12. In addition to this, students can apply with predicted scale grades from school, or also the standardized scores. So the standardized scores that we accept, range all the way from SAT, ACT, JEE mains, KVPY, and also your 12th board scores. In addition to that, and perhaps more importantly for me, is also the option to please submit your artifacts of your extracurricular activities, co-curricular interests, what kind of research projects have you taken part in, and also a written essay where students will be asked about what their interests are, what their life story is, and what really inspires them about technology. Followed by this, there's a virtual interaction where students can go on and have a one-on-one discussion. It's not going to be a technical interview where you're grilled about, it's not going to be a viva, but it is more an opportunity for you and people from the Plaksha team to have a conversation to discuss your interests, and also what your passions are, and how you can grow as an individual at Plaksha.
Siddhant, there are a bunch of questions on financial aid. I think you should address those as well.
Sure. So great, yes. So Plaksha has a very liberal financial aid policy. Uh, we start off with also the Bharti Scholarship, which is constituted for Plaksha students for both meritorious and need-based scholarships. And in addition to that, Plaksha also has a need-blind policy for financial aid, so that the cost of education does not become a barrier for education, and so that students, for whatever circumstances, who are not able to afford the Plaksha education, that does not become a barrier. And need-based scholarships are widely available for students. Um, I recognize that we have a lot of questions pending, and we will yes, we will be scheduling more webinars regarding the same. We also have weekly chats with our outreach and admissions team, which you can sign up for on our website www.plaksha.org. Our team's always there to help. So please feel free to reach out to us for having a chat. And with this, we conclude our discussion today. I'd just like to thank a very big thank you to both Mr. Srikanth and Professor Sukrit for joining us today, sharing their time with us. To all the students and parents, we hope that this open house gave you some more interesting insights into what computer science and artificial intelligence at Plaksha will look like, and how it also advances in the world around us. As I mentioned, the second round of admissions are already underway, and more details can be found on our website. And please do join us for our weekly chat sessions, registration for which are available on our website. Thank you once again for joining us today. Hope you all have a great day ahead, and please take care and stay safe.
Thank
Thank
you for
you.
having us.